Okay, Pops, every once in a while on this channel, we actually get some experts. Everyone knows you're washed up, man. 40 years you were in the business, but not that recently. We got to get some real pros with us. We have Lucky Lopez of Automotive Life. Check out his YouTube channel. Check out his Instagram. He's been in the business for 20 years. He even sells paper. We're going to figure out what the heck that means in just a second.
Buys paper.
Pops,
He buys paper.
He buys paper. He buys paper. He doesn't wrap paper.
Well, no, I wrap.
Lucky, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you guys so much for having me. Like I said, it's been almost 2 years in the making. It's great to see you guys. I was really hoping that you guys would have moved to Vegas by now, but that's okay. We can still meet via conferencing, which is still nice.
Well, I wouldn't mind if we moved to Vegas, but I'm not giving up the Jersey Shore in the summer. I do apologize for that. Lucky, if I could, let me ask you a quick question. You've been a dealer for 20 years, so you've seen the ups and the downs. Have you ever in your life seen a market like what we're going through at the present time?
Oh, no, this is the complete anomaly where we've seen depreciating assets actually go up. We see dealers, some of the principles that we sell cars every 30 to 60 days. I have dealers that their average holding days are 60 days. They don't care about their flooring lines because prices are going up and they don't want to sell their cars. They want to get all the money for them. We've seen banks do unprecedented unregulation when it comes to lending. A lot of the steps they used to ask for when you were in business, and then even like when I was, they don't ask for anymore. And it's like the wild, wild west. It blows my mind. Every time we try to get ahead of it, it's like something else pops up to throw a curveball. And, it's just been insane.
Wow. It almost reminds me to a certain degree of the housing crisis in the early 2000s, when literally, if you could fog a mirror, okay, if you could prove you were breathing, you could get a mortgage. And that's what it's almost like with car loans right now, because it seems as if the banks are concerned. They don't care about the loan to value ratios anymore.
Yeah, I have some bank printouts of during the pandemic. There were like dealers were complaining, the cars are more expensive, inflation. Can we get a little more extra LTV on the loans? And so, sometimes you go 130, 140. I had some subprime banks going up to 170% of LTV on some of these vehicles. And I think you hit a nail on the head with the 08 market. Because I remember in 08 with the houses, like the Ninja loans, anybody that was breathing can get a loan.
Yeah.
And, during like our reign, as we're qualifying a customer, if somebody has like the stimulus ballers, that's what I call them on my channel, but the people that got stimulus, it's a temporary increase of income. So if you say, hey, I'm a waiter, but I just got my plumbing license and I'm going to be a plumber, we can see that natural curve of income. So we can give you a much bigger loan. When the stimulus dollars came out, they didn't ask for 3 months bank statements. They didn't ask for previous job history. They're just like, what's your down? Which nobody's paying rent, so they used all their money for these big down payments. Put them into that next grade of lending, and they just shoveled out this paper, and it blows my mind. It literally is 2008. Instead of now, I'm really worried about now that this has happened. People are starting to complain. Paper's going to default. A lot of the stuff's been assessed and actually sold off to the stock market. I think the government, just like in the housing market, they're going to step in and try to regulate that. And that's the one thing no dealer or anybody in the automotive business wants. And I think that's the fear of what's going to happen.
It wouldn't surprise me.
So Lucky, you were actually you were like the main person that was quoted in this Barron's article that recently came out talking about the looming repo crisis, the loan delinquency crisis. Dig into this a little bit more with us here. What are you seeing on the ground? Obviously, you just mentioned subprime banks going up to 160, 170% loan to value ratio. That is insane. Like for those of you playing along at home, Pops, Lucky, maybe like set the bar here. Subprime bank, what would a typical LTV be there? Maybe Pops, what would it be?
90%.
It's high down payment, low risk. And for some reason, it shifted the other way during the pandemic, during the stimulus time, because they're like, the government's going to buy these loans. Let's just shovel them out the door there. But yeah, exactly. What I've been seeing is just a crazy amount of vehicles that are coming back for really funny reasons. So the video I did that kind of popped off that got a lot of people's attention was we were talking about how repos are going up. The car prices were dipping a little bit here in Vegas, California, and Arizona, and the market, and nobody believed me. Like, it's not that bad. So I physically took my camera to some of these lots. And basically a lot of the banks that we've been getting cars from have first payment defaults. They never register the cars after owning them for a year or so. So a lot of these people were literally the pre-essential stimulus ballers. People had those big down payments. They weren't paying the rent. They were paying their $1,000 monthly payment. A lot of these subprime banks we're getting loans from, most of their average car payments were close to $1,000. $800 to $900 was like the average of what we saw for just regular cars. Nothing fancy. We're talking Dodge Chargers, a handful of Mitsubishis, a few Hondas, and it blew my mind on how these people are able to get these cars. And so as we started going to the auction, we started getting more and more bids, and then we started going to the banks directly, trying to purchase from them. And one of the things I do is I go and I buy portfolio paper, auto paper from different dealers and banks and sell it off to other banks. And that's where I'm starting to get some of the data. I'm watching as these guys are getting cars with like people with constant late payments, that maybe the first 90 days have been late 3 or 4 times. They're bundling this paper with decent paper and then selling it off at $1 million a chunk. And the reason why I wanted to sound that alarm is because most of these banks, they always buy paper. They never sell. I'm going to buy here, pay here lots and buying it. Now the banks are calling me, hey, do you have anybody that wants to buy like $5 million in paper, $10 million in paper? And that's what let me know. It's like banks never sell unless they're scared. They're worried about it. And so I think that's kind of some of the things that I'm seeing right now.
Thinking about getting an extended warranty? Go to joinyaa.com and check out our pricing there. There's no obligation, no spam, no robocalls. YAA for your extended warranty.
Dad, to your point about '08, what's the movie that I'm trying to remember right now? I mean, that's like literally one of the scenes. It's not The Big Short. It might be The Big Short or the other one, but it's like literally a scene of like, someone working at whatever the investment bank was, Goldman, and it's like calling like, hey, do you want to buy this for 95 cents on the dollar? And it's like, no, 93. Okay, fine, 94. We got a deal. I mean, that's what you're saying. Like that doesn't happen. There's no reason to do that unless you know something is going to happen. And obviously you've kind of got your finger on the pulse of that.
Yeah. And, now that like I saw some of your guys' numbers that you guys were putting out, and that's what I love about your guys' channel is more analytical side. So I looked at some of the numbers, and my numbers matched fairly yours very quickly. But one thing I wanted to notice and also tell some of your watchers is that a lot of the paper, once it gets bought and sold to private companies, hedge funds, stuff like that, they're not banks. So they're not forced to basically report the late payments, repo, stuff like that. It goes into their collection departments and they chase that money. And once it's amortized and put on the stock market, I have no idea where it goes. So that's why I feel like the numbers you gave were already scary, but I think that the numbers that we're not seeing from the high risk subprime and everything else is the real telltale sign of how bad this thing is actually getting, and it's starting to snowball very quickly.
It almost sounds, if I may, it almost sounds like some of these hedge funds and others that have bought these packages have no idea just how bad the packages are that they bought, because they're not used to this. This isn't their area of expertise, so that they might not realize exactly what they bought until it's too late.
Yeah, and these are people's retirement funds. These are people's investments, school teacher pensions. I mean, just like you said earlier, the 2008 crisis, they're amortizing and bundling all that really bad housing paper and selling it off, rating it AAA, and people are buying this as long-term investments. They're doing the same thing with auto loans. And now it's like musical chairs. They're literally taking this crappy paper and they're literally shuffling it around to all the dealers, and every bank, is selling it to another dealership. And once the market dips about 10, 15%, they can't get their 90 cents on the dollar. They're going to try to sell this, and whoever's left holding the bag is the one that's going to be hit by all the regulations. The government's going to be like, oh, you're doing predatory lending, blah, blah, blah. And so I think that's what's going to happen to us here in the next maybe 6 to 9 months is what I'm guessing.
Wow.
So let's talk a little bit. Lucky, on our channel, we are notorious for our crystal ball being very fuzzy. Does that stop us from making, projections or prognosticating about what could happen? Of course it doesn't. So let's talk a little bit. My dad and I, we went out and we said, what was this, 2 weeks ago, Pops? We said, wait 60 to 90 days to buy a used car. That's when we think some of the changes that we're seeing in the wholesale market already, because we see in the Black Book data week over week, the Manheim data from Cox Automotive down 2.2% wholesale used car prices so far just in the first 2 weeks of July. Like, we're starting to see on the wholesale market some softening. Yeah. Are you thinking then 60, 90 days, 6 to 9 months? Like, what do you think is eventually the retail side? Because a lot of people that watch the YAA channel just want to go get a fair car deal. And we've been telling them for a year plus, don't buy a used car. If you can, go buy a new car at MSRP. If you can, big if.
Yeah.
What are you seeing on the used car side? When do you think the retail side starts to see this?
You guys hit it on the head. 60 to 90 days. It's whatever happens now, like how we're talking about how auction prices are dipping. There's more and more no sales at the auction. I'm watching them pile up every week, and so that takes about 90 days to trickle out to the dealers. And so a lot of these dealers right now are holding on to this really overpriced inventory. They're not moving, so now they're not buying at the auction. So people keep saying, well, I'm going to the dealer, and they're not lowering their price. I'm like, don't worry, they will. As that inventory starts building up, and that's as supply builds up, and that demand's pretty much drying up very quickly, I think they're going to see it. I've seen some dealers here in Las Vegas. I was able to get a new Corvette, no MSRP, a new Lamborghini, no MSRP, Bronco, no MSRP. So I'm seeing some of these people pull back on the new car ends, but I've seen a lot of dealers starting to get scared about the used car market. So they're starting to price their stuff effectively, but not really great.
Have you seen the dealers be more concerned with their flooring costs now, with the interest rates going up and destined to go up again? What is it, next week when the Fed meets? Is there a concern for the dealers about what it's costing them to actually hold on to these cars?
I'm glad you brought that up. So I talk about this on my channel. Like, flooring line is the death of most dealerships. I've seen flooring companies put out dealerships out of business more than, lawsuits, a bad economy, whatever it is, And so we say, sell your cars, don't keep them, watch the flooring line, because you're on that sliding scale. Every time the rate hikes up, you're going points over prime. And it's embarrassing that when I go to like these dealer conferences or when I do my videos, people have no idea. I'm like, what are you paying on your flooring? I don't know. So for the last 2 years, these dealers have been able to sit on inventory, not be very smart with their heads, not worry about interest and everything else, because the market just kept going up. And I think it's taught all these guys really bad habits. And so like you said, when these rates go up and these dealers are holding the bag, and then once they realize, oh my God, I got $3,000 in the last 3 months into this car and like interest fees and pouring and whatever else, I bought it overpriced, I over reconned it, I'm going to take it to the auction and get 90% of what I paid for it originally, and that's just going to build that inventory. So that's my sliding scale. I say that the most of the cars are going to come from when like AFC next year pull their purse strings and start calling people back, because at first I set up dealerships on the side and I was giving people lines of credit. I mean, we're talking people with no experience, decent credit. They were giving them $600,000-$700,000, lines of credit. When I first started, they gave me $75,000. I'm like, I 10 years, they're like, whatever, here's just 75 grand. They're just handing this money out. And so last week I set up a dealer in Texas, and this guy, 800 credit score, owns multiple houses. I think he's got $1 million in the bank. They barely gave him like $300,000. So they're starting to pull back. I think it's because they start to see that these dealers, they can't pay these high interest payments. No dealers have money anymore. Like back in your day, every dealer wrote a stroke a check because they didn't want to pay $1 over because it was coming out of their pocket. My generation, they're all idiots. They have no money. They're all credit. When people ask me, why did you sell your dealership? I was like, I was trying to make it next year in AFC money. And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, that's exactly it. Is the flooring lines eat up all your profit. So when dealers have to make, I made $4,000 off this car after they pay their fees, what they paid their flooring, everything else, they realize they only made about $1,200. It's pretty embarrassing.
So this leads me to think a little bit about Pops and Lucky. We have seen dealer consolidation over the past few years. So the big publicly traded groups coming in and buying the smaller mom and pops. This makes me think we're probably going to see more of that, because there's going to be smaller mom and pop dealerships that are in hardship, but have franchise license agreements and have good real estate, et cetera. So we're going to see more dealership consolidation, is my 2 cents. This, I think, also then ties in with the recent FTC proposal for rules around fairness and trying to take away some of the shady or sleazy tactics that we see at car dealerships. I think there's an interesting storyline here where we see more monopolistic dealership entities being stood up, less of the mom and pops, and more oversight from the government of, hey, we actually want you to treat people fairly. I don't know if I have a particular direction for all of that. So Pops, maybe you can help me make a question out of it. But I think it's an interesting melding of all the different pieces at the same time.
Well, I agree with you. I think it's interesting the way all that's coming together. I just find it interesting that the vast majority of dealers out there, especially those that are part of the National Automobile Dealers Association, are dead set against having these rules and regulations come to be, or even the existing rules and regulations being enforced. Lucky for you, I know when you advertise online, in today's world, if you advertise a real price, you're never going to get clicks on your car. So everybody has figured out, well, there's got to be something we leave out of the advertised price so ours can be lower than anybody else's, so we'll get some clicks on our inventory. As a dealer, as somebody who does what you do, how do you look at these proposals that the FTC has come up with?
I'm actually for it because it's one of the things I liked on at my store is like if I was on Car Gurus, my car was $33,000 and everybody else was like 26, 27. I'm like, this is everything except sales tax. That's the only thing I don't put in there. But doc fee, registration, whatever, shipping, whatever it is, it's all included. And I've never seen so many people so angry every time you go to a dealer. Like even myself, like I was born and raised in Vegas and I've never bought a car from a Las Vegas dealership because I'll call them 3 times. I'm like, look, I'm a dealer. Don't BS me. I was like, you know, can you give me the car for X amount of dollars? Yeah, no problem. Just sales tax, whatever else. Okay, cool. I'll come down. I'll write you a check or I'll go to my credit union and get a bank check. Every time I get down there, they start the hokey pokey. Oh, well, what destination fee, doc fee, this fee at $33,000. And you're just like, no, they need to do that. And also, I'm not going to only beat up on the dealers, but it's also a lot of these companies like Car Gurus. They force these dealers to just, it's a race to the bottom. It's like, you got to put the lowest price because I imagine paying $5,000 a month. That's what I was paying for Car Gurus just for them to tell me that my cars are overpriced. Literally, it's like I'm paying $5,000. You got to get us because we're everywhere. I didn't use Auto Trader, none of them. I used only Facebook and OfferUp because I got so sick of them like putting the screws to me like, oh, well, you're charging too much. You need to lower your price. You need to lower your price. And it's the bad way to do business. I think that if they make this law, it'll make it more streamlined, almost like buying a house, like where it's like, here's the house, here's the fees, and everything needs to be presented up front. And then if you want anything extra, let them sell something extra because dealers got to make something somewhere. So I don't mind, you know, if they want to sell them, you know, an aftermarket warranty, you know, paint protection, something that'll benefit them. You know, the $200 keychains and floor mats, that stuff's got to go. But everything else I'm good for.
I hear you. And I would think, and I've said it, that the good dealers would embrace this as hopefully getting the bad dealers run out of town.
Yeah. I mean, totally. I mean, it's like, I love the fact of like when people came to my store and I'm like, hey folks, it's $33,000 plus sales tax, nothing hidden. There's no arguing, negotiate. Oh, okay. Can you do 32? Okay, folks, I'll do 32. It's a hard way to go from 27 to like 33,000, you know, and then they're just like, there's nowhere to go. They're upset. I don't want any conflict. I want to get people in, get them happy, roll them out, you know, like, just like you're in a business, you got to move metal. You can never replace the customer, can always replace the car. Make the customer happy, make, you know, quick buck, get another car. The dealers nowadays, they're all about, I got to get gross. I got to rip this guy's head off, bury him so I'll never sell him a car in the next 10 years. And he'll absolutely hate the whole transaction. I remember there's this gentleman, Bruce, I won't go on too much of a tangent, but he was an older salesman that I met. He worked at this Buick store. This guy was the old school guy. He had an actual Rolodex. He had everybody's birthdays, names of their dogs, names of their ex-wives. He'd mail out Christmas cards. He was what I saw. That's how I thought car sales professionals were. Fast forward to today, I saw you guys did an article like we're the most hated. I think car salesmen are above attorneys. I mean, above the lawyers and above like everybody else. It's just we are the worst. And it's because we were so deceptive. Like we can't be transparent about anything. And it drives me nuts. And I don't want people like us to be associated with some of these scumbags or these other dealers that are just pulling the wolves over customers' eyes and lying to their faces.
As somebody once said, and it seems to be the opposite of this today. Somebody once told me, Ray, it's easier to come down on a price than it is to move the customer up on a price. But the way many dealerships do it today is they advertise the cheap price and they bring the people in. And then they have to move them up in the price. That's the hard part.
Yeah.
I mean, you can always come down on your asking price. It is so much more difficult to move the customer up off your asking price because if they don't just walk out at, well, I really need an extra $5,000. I don't know how you do that on a daily basis. And as a dealer or as a salesperson or a sales manager, maintain your sanity. I mean, It's
Yeah,
just not the right way to do things.
Yeah, I don't even know how these guys do this. Like you said, that's like sales 101. It's like, I'd rather start off high and work our way down. You're just like, hey, folks, I know you came for a great deal. Guess what? That deal's gone. You're getting shot up. You got bad credit. We're just, and it's just, I see people screaming because like my old lot was right there on the main drag of Sahara, which is like a bunch of franchise stores. And I made my money. They would go to this franchise store is going to give me 84 months at 0% interest and blah, blah. Okay, buddy, you go ahead and go down there. And once whatever that price is, they're going to add 10 grand onto it. And then you're going to come back to us. And as a small independent car dealer, it's very hard to compete with these franchise stores because if they can't get you done with a payment, they just keep adding months at the end of it. They don't never lower the price. They just got to add more months to your loan.
Yes.
You can get the payment that you want.
Exactly.
Yeah. And this is why we obviously do it. We do it YAA. And Lucky, I want to take a moment. Let's talk about Automotive Life. Let's talk about the channel that you've built. Obviously, here on YouTube, you have a great following over on Instagram as well. Talk a little bit about what you're trying to do with the channel, with your social media. Like, how are you helping consumers as they navigate all of this?
So originally I opened my channel just because when I first started the car business, I was like, hey, I want to start a dealership. Can you give me some information? And as you guys know, most dealers, they don't even want to do stuff like this. They don't want to share any secrets. They don't want to help anybody. It's my information is secret. They're holding on to something mystical and they don't share it. So I wanted to give people kind of a peek behind the curtains on some of the things that, that I've fallen with. I lost money, a lot of money on cars. So I teach people how to buy cars on my channel. I teach about flooring. A lot of these young new guys, they don't know anything about credit and finance. I've watched dealers literally ruin their lives with getting too much flooring, getting too in debt, not paying their sales tax. So my channel is basically just to talk about the automotive industry, auto repair, rental cars, dealerships, and just like news like this, et cetera, just kind of a little bit of everything, a peek behind the curtains. So not only to show what customers, what it's really like, also if they're thinking about getting in the automotive industry. So I don't stick up for the customers and I don't stick up for the dealers. I kind of just show a transparent side of what's really going on. So usually in my stories, I'll tell you the good stuff from a consumer and then the good stuff from a dealer and the bad on both of them. But that's kind of what my channel's about.
God bless you. You do a great job of it, by the way.
Appreciate it.
If you're interested in following Lucky, which obviously, I mean, we're having him on the YAA channel. We want you to go follow him. He's got good information. Just search, again, Automotive Life, one word. It should pop right up here on YouTube, Instagram, Google search it, find his website and everything like that. Lucky, can we get you back on the show sometime in the future as well? Is that a big ask? But maybe I'll put you on the spot.
No, totally, because I think we need to look at our fuzzy crystal ball to see how correct we were and how I really think this stuff's going to come to fruition. Because right now, we seem crazy, the people with the tinfoil hats, but I guarantee you in 6 months, we're going to be just wizards. We're gonna be guessing the future and everything else. So I think what we just talked about in here is literally gonna go on record. It's gonna exactly happen that way.
Pops, do you know how to create a calendar invite? Have I taught you how to do that?
No, I leave that up to you. You're the tech guy. I am the pretty face.
Well, Lucky, thank you for joining us. I'll get that calendar invite sent out 60 days from now, guys. We'll be back here doing this once again. Lucky, thanks for being here. This was really fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me. I love your channel and continued success to you guys.
Thanks again, Lucky. We appreciate it.